Hi guys, just one little factor here before we start this video here today. If for any reason my YouTube channel gets taken down, which could happen because we're challenging the deep state and we're challenging the powers behind the scenes. But if it does get taken, we have a website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and you can subscribe on there to our updates and our newsletters, etc., that are being produced by Lee Hemington. But you'll be able to keep in touch with what's going on. So at the moment, everything is nice and smooth. But if for any reason we get taken down, you simply go to my website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and register there, and you'll get all the information as to where we are or where you can view our videos.
You know, I mean, the thing that I'm most interested in or concerned about at the moment is obviously this manufactured pandemic that we're all going through, and my fears for where it's headed.
But if I go back to what I was told, Darren, and from my first videos back in March, I was told 6 years ago that they were going to shut down stuff.
Right.
Then 2 years ago, they told me the same. When I say they told me, I'm talking to people in high office in the American government.
Right. Because
I do a lot of work with them. And then in December last year, they said, right, Donald Trump's in power, Boris Johnson's in power in England, and the UK's out of the EU. So we're ready to go. And I was like, what do you mean ready to go? And they said, we're going to collapse the world's economy for a global financial reset. And I went, really? How are you going to do that then? And they said, oh, we got a whole list of things. And I went, like what? And then they said, wait and see, wait and see. Anyway, come March, come along. And of course, first of all, we hear about, I've questioned lots of things, Darren, in my life because of the way I was brought up.
Yeah.
And
I think the older generation, obviously I'm not quite as wise as you, Charlie.
I wouldn't go there.
But yeah, I was always brought up at school and taught at school to question everything.
Correct. And so when the virus came along, first of all, my first question, just keep it simple, right? If it came out of Wuhan, first of all, Wuhan, we know the laboratory's there.
Two.
We also know it's in China.
Yeah.
And we know that the Americans funded it.
Yeah.
But if this virus suddenly shot into different countries like this, but missed Shanghai and Beijing, you go, hang on, this is a fucking clever virus.
Yeah.
That doesn't add up to start with.
It's very selective.
When things don't add up, you go, I need to have a little look at this. And the first thing I had to do was turn the television.
Turn television off?
Off, because it was
something that I try to tell everybody I meet: stop watching the TV, stop watching the mainstream news. They're lying to you, they're scaring you, but people are addicted to it, aren't they?
They are. It's worse than cocaine.
Yeah.
They're absolutely completely hooked on mainstream media and can't get off it.
And it's the same with the social media. So I mean,
yes,
I can go back as far as December. I mean, you know that I have a fairly active Twitter account, Darren Plymouth on Twitter, and I noticed in December, after the election had died down and Boris had won his massive majority, everyone was happy, Brexit was coming, and I started seeing on my Twitter feed videos coming out of China of packed out hospitals, people dropping dead in the streets. Lots of reports of numbers coming out of China of infection rates and a mysterious virus that was killing people in Wuhan.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I took it hook, line, and sinker and started tweeting about it.
Okay.
And the amount of information from December going into January that suddenly seemed to be coming directly out of China. It was unusual, but I started promoting it. And if I look at my Twitter stats when I go back to that period of time from January to March, I realized at sort of halfway through February, March time, where it hit Italy and there was talks of lockdown in the UK, that my Twitter stats the impression numbers, the number of people seeing my tweets was massively high. And it became quite clear to me then that whatever it was that was coming out of China or reportedly coming out of China, and some of it wasn't, some of it was coming out of places like Turkey and the Middle East, was clearly being amplified.
Yeah.
And then this can be seen in my stats. In fact, I've got it on my screen, but I don't know how to share it on here. Yeah, I mean, I get 10 million impressions a month on a good month.
Wow.
So in this 3-month period, I was getting 25 to 30 million impressions a month for the same number of same amount of content that I was putting out into the web. And I realized then that there's something seriously wrong with these numbers. And I believe that social media and me as an unwitting tool user was actually promoting propaganda to promote this pandemic and scare people. And it seems like it was quite successful how they did it. So I feel a bit of guilt looking back on that period of time, because I was one of the first people to jump on what was going on in China and promoting it to a UK audience, or to the followers that I have.
Well, you learn very little from success in life, Darren. You learn everything from failure, and if you can learn from failure, then you become so much better. And if you can admit failure, then you become so much better.
Yeah, and I've tried to explain this to people. Hey, what was going on in China, I don't think was true, because they immediately stopped it. They stopped their pandemic dead once it hit the rest of the world. The pandemic in China seemed to stop dead in its track. And like you said, never spread out of Wuhan in the Hubei province.
And then when you consider that if you do your research properly, that the government downgraded it to nothing more than the flu back in March.
That's right.
4 days before the vote. Then it plays totally into what I was told. They were shutting down the world's economy. So when that happened, I was then speaking to my contacts that had given me this information. And they said, oh, we got a whole list of things, Charlie. We got the virus, which has started now. Then we'll have a vaccine that caused chaos. The mandate was to cause chaos and fear. And they've done it. Absolutely amazing. And people say, well, Boris Johnson, he's made a complete hash of it. Hang on. If you believe that he was asked to create confusion and fear, he's done an amazing job.
They've done an amazing job. You've only got to walk out along the street, just the streets of Plymouth, which is sort of dislocated. It's in the back arse of England. And the environment change, the people walking around with masks, the people wearing 2 masks and a visor sitting in a convertible car, the posters everywhere, COVID-19. I mean, it's insanity. But like you said, this was on purpose. It was deliberate, and the intention was to cause fear amongst the public, and people have bought it hook, line, and sinker.
It's a bit like telling the mainstream media. It's a bit like being a drug addict and telling a drug addict to give up their drugs, and they go, yeah, and then it's next day they're watching it again. They're so addicted to it. That. But I'll be honest with you, Dan. I've never felt peace like I've felt since I've turned off the television, started finding out the truth. And somebody said to me today, at 2 o'clock this morning, as I was talking to somebody in America, and they said, how sure are you that your contact is right? And I said, look, I've got now 4 or 5 contacts who tell me their information. And now Charlie gets that information and puts it out in Charlie's way. But between when I get that information and when I put it out, I'm not religious. But I do talk to God and say, just guide me on what's right and what's wrong. Just guide me. That's all I ask. And if it's wrong, just point it out. And if it's right, point it out. And so far, he's done exactly that. And I'm not religious. I don't believe in religion. I believe in faith.
Right. Okay.
Religion, I think, is divisive. But I think faith in something, whether it's God, whether it's Allah, whoever you want to call it, whether it's Buddha, it doesn't matter. But what matters is to have faith in something. And then you can be guided. And I'll give you a little example of something that happened the other day where I could have gone down 2 different paths, and I chose the right path. And now we found out what happened down the other path. by God, am I glad I didn't go down that path. But I was led down a certain path, and it could have gone 50-50, could have gone either which way. And the path I went down with, I landed up doing the right thing, whereas I could have landed up doing so easily, been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And I avoided it.
What was the path? What was that decision that you had to make?
I don't want to say the bad way, but the good way was I landed up going to be with my daughter and my granddaughter.
Well, that sounds like that was the right path to take then, Charlie.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a religious person. However, I have sort of, not publicly or anything, renounced my strident atheism. I'm a scientist by training, and I believe in I've always believed in the physical world, and I understand how the physical world is made from my classical chemistry training. But recently, I've got too many questions to ask. And,
if you're a scientist, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Because my faith in God has been tested many times. I was brainwashed into it when I grew up. I rebelled against it, became completely anti, almost to a level of atheism, almost. And then I sort of found my way back to what's right. But I'm going to ask you this question because I was in a church searching for truth in South Wales. It was the King's Church in Newport, South Wales. And they had a guy over from South Africa who's actually German. And his name was Reinhard Bonnke. Now, he died last year in December. But he used to have a congregation of 100,000 people in Africa. And I watched him. The church in Newport, South Wales was too small to handle a number of people. So they hired the sports centre out. And there was a man in a wheelchair that had been paralysed from birth. And he laid his hands on his knees and he prayed with this man. And then he held his hands and he got him up and he walked. Now that spooked me out, completely freaked me out. And I actually walked out because I felt completely spooked. But I have a very simple philosophy to deal with it. If you buy a washing machine from Hotpoint and it breaks down, you take it back to Hotpoint. If you believe that God made man and somebody's got a link with God, you can say to him, could you sort this one out? Because you made a bit of a mess of him at the start. That's how I deal with it, Darren. How would you deal with it from a scientific point of view?
How would I deal with witnessing?
With that thought process of taking it back to a maker if you believe he made it in the first place.
Well, I mean, my beliefs in origin, I have faith. I believe that there were gods in our past.
Okay.
Whatever that might mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe in some non-corporeal being or deity that controls everything. However, with recent events and my own intuition on events that might happen, just to me in my personal life, I sometimes find so uncanny that you have to wonder whether there is a script for all of us. And I think belief in yourself and in those around you is massively important. Like you said, it's all about faith, isn't it? And trusting your feelings and your intuition. And we live in a world now where, everybody's acting on these feelings, but that's all false. It's like we're losing our humanity as a species at the moment. And I think the events of recent times, the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement and everything else that's terrorizing the public on our screens. I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that out of this we can regain some of our humanity that we've lost.
The best thing for me through this whole journey is to have conversations with people like you. I have a conversation with a gentleman called James that we haven't gone on the screen yet, but we talk in private and we have opposing views. And it's the chance to embrace another view and try and listen to it. Because the one thing I've learned with the extreme left, unless you have their view, they will not listen to you.
No, you're wrong. You're bad.
I'm totally wrong. I'm evil.
In fact, you're an evil man.
Exactly right.
You don't agree with them. And I'm a teacher, but I'm a teacher at the moment. I teach chemistry. I teach physics.
Wow.
And I've worked in the education system for 3 years. I no longer am associated with the UK education system anymore. And the reason for that was I was effectively cancelled because I supported Brexit. And I was an outspoken Brexit supporter online. I've got a reasonable amount of followers. But I also didn't agree with, say, some of the transgender issues, or I didn't agree with how things were taught at school. You know, everybody's a victim. And this is the leftist ideology through and through. And I was told, if you don't conform, if you don't comply, then you're out. And, I was cancelled as a result of it. And now I teach privately. And I'm far more effective at teaching privately without the constraints of that really far left ideology hanging over me.
I wonder how they would deal with when I was at school in the sort of 60s and 70s. And I used to get the cane at school for being naughty. I got the cane at home for getting the cane at school.
And it worked, yeah?
It worked. I understand discipline, I understand.
Yeah, exactly. And there is zero discipline in our education system at the moment. And we're turning out low-grade, and I don't like saying it, low-grade, low-quality students who have had an indoctrination, not an education. And then we're just deliberately sending them off with debt attached to universities. And so we've got a society of left-wing, indoctrinated, uneducated, degree-holding members of society are just activists and actually not adding any value. And it's deeply concerning for the future, Charlie, to be honest. And we see this now on the streets, don't we, with all these riots and protests.
I was speaking to a young lady called Jen McCarthy the other day. She lives at Glastonbury. Some people regard her as a bit of a hippie type. I regard her as a free spirit. She took her children out of school and she travelled to India with them and educated them herself. They can read and write, etc. They're intelligent people. But she took them away from the polluted mainstream educational system. And I often think, if I look back at my life, as long as you can read and write proficiently, I wish I'd studied geography a bit more because I love travel. I wish I'd studied history a bit more so that I could understand history. The problem is the history that's being taught is not real history, a lot of it.
It's watered down.
And I just wish that they'd taught us about health and fitness rather than sport, so that we know how to look after our immune systems, how to look after our bodies, that exercise is a good thing. And I wish that would have been part of the curriculum. And I think the curriculum needs to be revisited so that the basics, we say reading and writing, but our diet and our exercise is a very important part of our life.
And things like decision making and common sense and accountability, responsibility. I was always told we must breed resilience in our students when actually we just built up an infrastructure around every student on the disability issue. Everybody's got a disability. And we put all these students into boxes and they never actually really learn any life skills. And it's deeply worrying.
I remember being naughty once when I parked in a disabled bay and the guy stopped me outside Tesco's and he said, this is a disabled bay. What's your disability? I said, my disability is I can't read. And he just looked at me completely dumbfounded.
Well, now that would be a legitimate reason to park in a disability bay.
Oh, this shows you how crazy the world has gone. I was just being cheap.
Exactly.
I moved my car, but it was interesting just to watch his face when I explained my disability was the fact that I couldn't read.
So you're in Spain at the moment, right?
I'm in Spain, in southern Spain at the moment. Yeah.
So how's the lockdown restrictions there then?
They're scared to death. And you have to understand, when I first came to Spain 38 years ago, the minute I landed here, I was fairly scared because every policeman carries a gun. That wakes you up very quickly to abide by the law. You don't question the law when a policeman has a gun. So you become very compliant. And the people here are scared to death.
Okay.
And I think more people will die out of fear than out of any form of virus.
Well, I mean, I think that's already been shown in the statistics here that lockdown has killed twice as many people as the supposed virus has.
Yeah.
And it's the same here. You know, people are scared to death. You can see that in their with the mask wearing. You can see it from viewing social media.
Well, you'll know as a scientist, or certainly from the biology side, that you can't actually transmit a virus. You can transmit germs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the masks are useless. So
exactly. And our body has over 1 trillion viruses inside anyway. I have 40 million in our mouth alone.
Our evolutionary history is actually based on our coexistence with viruses. Viruses were here before we were. And, you know, I'm not a biologist or a Darwinian evolutionist or anything, but, you know, viruses are an integral part of who we are. And the whole mask wearing and washing the hands and everything is actually reducing our immunity.
Totally.
And I believe that is the sole purpose of the mask wearing.
It is. It is.
One, to
genocide. It's genocide. It's reduce your immune system. In the winter, Darren, when the temperatures are low enough for germs to be able to be transmitted, your immune system would be so low, especially if you're older. If you're over 60, 70, 80 years old, you've got no immune system to defend against these viruses. It will kill you. And this is why the second lockdown will be in place to make sure that these deaths can go down as COVID-19.
Exactly.
And
the new flu season.
It'll be genocide.
And you know, I'm expecting, at least in the UK, but probably worldwide, particularly with the approaching November election, that we're going to go down. We're going to be submitted to a further lockdown with more extreme draconian measures.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I'll be honest, I'm dreading it. You know, I'm not looking forward to.
I've learned to hibernate.
Hibernate. Yeah.
It's just a question of hibernation, and let's just keep our eyes open, but just keep out of the way of all the bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will be self-isolating. Not, you know, as much as I will be forced to comply with the rules as far as I'm willing to allow myself to be. Everyone's going to be locked down again. And I'm really, really fearful, particularly with the vaccination issue, where this is going to go. You know, who have just said 2 more years of COVID?
No, Chris Whitty. Scaremongering. That's all 100% scaremongering, because what they're trying to do is see how much they can get away with, to see how thick the people really are. Because some of the stuff that's coming out right now, you just go, how far can they push it before people actually start to wake up? And a number of government officials are saying, why are we getting away with this? Why are we able to do this? And I know certain government officials in the UK that can't believe that they're getting away with some of the things that they're testing to see if they can get away with it.
It's unbelievable, and people are. It's a classic case of mass cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
Yes,
the hysteria. Because I've not worn a mask. I'll show you my mask if I ever get a chance to wear it.
Yeah.
But people see me without a mask, and you can see it in their face. That the confusion. Yeah. Why is he not wearing a mask? Is he insane?
I'll stop and tell them exactly why. I've learned not to get aggressive with them, because it's. I grew up in Suffolk, and I grew up near, you know, in the farming world, and if you push sheep, they go everywhere.
Yeah.
If you just lead them along and just point out things, they'll come with you. And even Lee, who manages my social media, said, I just wish our numbers would increase more and more. I said, Lee, we've gone from 37 to 126,000 in 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a great following on YouTube.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But
how quickly did that take off?
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
You must be doing something right. People must be interested in what you've got to say.
Well, I'm telling the truth in a world full of lies.
Exactly.
People. The thing is people can smell what's true and what's not. I have so many people who say, I don't know if you're right, Charlie, but what we're being told is definitely wrong.
Yeah.
And you make sense. You make sense. And I said, well, when I find out the information, as I said to you earlier, I'll try and find out what the truth is. And then I just have a little word and say, just guide me the right way. Am I doing the right thing? And if I was lying through my back teeth, I'd be really nervous every single day especially with the following and the challenges I get every day. But I'm just sort of trying to be guided the right way. With the factual information, I've tried to stick to fact. And fact is everything that's happened before and everything that happens today up until now. The rest is conspiracy and
conjecture.
But I've been told there's so much stuff, Darren, that has so far happened. So who am I to argue?
Yeah, I mean,
it has happened.
And everything that's happening right now, like you said, in the last 6 months, it's been documented.
Exactly.
That information is available quite readily on the internet if you go to look for it. And it goes back as far as I can find 2010 in terms of a narrative in which whoever it is that's perpetuating these crimes on people, on humanity, on society in general, have followed, which is the Rockefeller.
There's some very interesting facts. For an example, the laboratory in Wuhan, nobody has answered the phone in 3 months.
Really?
We've been told that they were all dead. We don't know. We don't know because I haven't been there. But I've been told. I know for a fact that I've tried probably 100 times, no answer.
Oh, you tried calling yourself?
Yeah. Also, on another factual point, I contacted the WHO about where it said on their website that wearing a mask was actually dangerous unless you were dealing with it. And they admitted to it. But they said, we've chosen to remove it because it might be misleading.
Yeah. Nature in May, as recently as May, actually reported in one of their articles that face masks offer no benefit and are not efficient in preventing the transmission of viruses. Well, it's the old analogy that it's like using a wire mesh to prevent mosquitoes.
Or like putting a condom on your bollocks.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, or after you've come.
exactly right. But people just think it's the thing to do. There was that lovely one that was on Facebook with the woman walking into a store in America. She didn't have a mask, so she pulled her dress up, took her knickers off, put them around her ears, and they let her in.
Yeah.
And you just went, really?
Yeah.
When did people wake up?
Yeah, it's because they've been locked down for 3 months.
Yeah.
Stuck in front of the TV, and then they've had these aggressive, fear-mongering presentations carried out by people with political titles. So they must know what they're talking about. It must be genuine information that's being presented to the people.
But that's the other one is Black Lives Matter. It's the money's come from the Clinton Foundation. It's come from George Soros.
Yeah.
Just happened to be white.
Yeah.
When it goes through the Black Lives Matter Foundation, it comes out the other side and goes into the Biden campaign. So surely the black people in the middle are being slaves, and they're promoting it.
Of course. All these Black Matter activists, who are mostly white, by the way.
Exactly.
They're just pawns.
They are.
And they're going to be disregarded and discarded once the money's been brought in, and whatever their aims are. It seems like just to burn down the cities in America. I think that's the sole purpose of this movement. And it's kicked off again, hasn't it, today? Because another black man was shot by police. And it's clearly a Marxist revolutionary organization that's been well funded. I mean, how did it instantly just suddenly spring into existence all over the planet, or all over the Western world, in every major city on the same day for the same reasons? I mean, with all the same signs, and people, how can people just accept this, And I don't think with the Black Lives Matter movement, people are buying it anymore.
No.
And now it's just really turned into a bunch of rioters. It's the same people going in and out of prison in America, or in and out of the judiciary system, back on the streets. And it's insane. And now the reports are Extinction Rebellion are going to join forces with Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Of course, they're both the same groups of people, both with the same aims.
Funded by the same people.
They're funded by the same people. And I think for the next 3 months, with the November election coming along, that movement is just going to keep gathering pace, or appear to on our TV. Yeah, with the intention of trying to disrupt the November elections, along with the pandemic.
Yeah,
they'll be the only people not locked down.
the minute I saw the Democrats logo, I just knew that they'd lost this completely. The Democrats logo for their election campaign is "Death to America," and you just go, really, it looks like Donald Trump is playing with them now, just like showing how bad they really, really are.
I mean, there's no way they can win in November without cheating.
Well, no, they can't even cheat because the new quantum financial system, the digital voting system, is attached to it. And the Democrats haven't worked that out yet. So they've spent millions and millions on postal votes. And Donald Trump will expose it and say, fine, we're not going to use a postal vote. We're not going to use the old voting system. We now have a digital voting system that you need an app on your phone or on your computer. You have to register your NIE number, your registration number. And it's now been proven at this moment in time, it's impossible to hack.
Yeah, this is the quantum part of the quantum financial system. So I'm no expert on any of this. I'm aware of NESARA and GESARA, but I don't know all the details.
I don't either. I'm trying to investigate.
Yeah, there's quite limited information on it, and a lot of it is, conspiracy world. I've read stuff and they talk.
Well, as of 2 o'clock this morning, I actually had hard evidence of it from the government website in America, which I'll share with you.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah,
I'll share it as a link underneath this because it's come directly out of the US government.
Okay.
About the new financial system.
And what do you think that's going to be implemented when? And how? Because that would be in opposition to what I believe to be the aims of the pandemic. Or do you believe the pandemic has been put in place to prevent NESARA and GESARA happening?
No, the pandemic was started by the bad ones, but been managed by the good guys, and it's purely a smokescreen to cover the global financial reset and the quantum financial system. The SWIFT banking system and the fiat currency based system will cease to exist as of the 31st of August 2020. The new quantum financial system was launched on the 2nd of August, is working perfectly well. They're still trialing it, but it will be fully operational by the 15th of September.
Right. So you believe this will be in place then, a month or two before the November elections?
Oh, yeah.
Will the public know?
They'll know on the 15th of September.
You think it's going to happen on the 15th of September?
I'll show you the government link.
Yeah.
From the government.
And this is going to be good for people?
It'd be absolutely amazing.
Because they're going to get rid of the fiat currency.
Get rid of the fiat currency, and every currency in the world will be gold backed.
Yeah.
I can't tell you too much about everything about it because I've had to sign an NDA about it.
Right.
A non-disclosure agreement which doesn't allow me to discuss exactly what. But I can tell you 100% for sure this is the way we're moving.
Okay. Wow. Maybe we could have a 5-minute Zoom meeting on the 16th to see if that does actually.
If I send you the government documentation, you can read it for yourself.
Yeah, well, I will
become public. Most of the public wouldn't know where to find it, so I'll share that information below our video here.
Okay.
But I'll share it directly with you.
Is that information that can be free shared?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's free to share. It's come directly from the government website.
Okay, right, great. I'll have a look at that. I mean, the current financial system has to go, doesn't it?
It does.
It's indebted and enslaved everybody. Yeah. And I think, if there's one question that people should be asking right now in the Western world, Europe, UK, America, is where did all the money come from?
Yeah.
We just voted for Boris Johnson. He only promised us $4 billion a year,
yeah, exactly.
And they've just dumped 600 odd billion into our economy.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend, and he's going, "Well, it had to come from somewhere. There has to be some sort of equilibrium." And it's like, no, they just changed the decimal point in the system, and the money magically appeared. But we have to pay it back with interest.
We don't anymore.
Wow, I mean, that would be great. And I've also
it's corrupt. That whole system is corrupt, and Donald Trump has been all over it for a long time. The team behind him, the alliance behind him, have been planning this meticulously for years and years and years. And you will start to see, like I shared a link yesterday on Facebook of the site that you can put your national insurance number in and see how much you've been traded for in your lifetime.
I mean, everyone has about £500,000 price tag attached to them when they're born.
As an absolute minimum, yeah.
Yeah, as an absolute minimum. Yeah, of course.
The fact now that the elite from the Venetians have been arrested, who hold all the birth certificates in Venice, because this is why we're under maritime law, because Venice is not technically on land; it's technically detached. So that's why all the birth certificates in the world are held there. But they were taken down 3 months ago.
Right. Okay.
Right at the start. That's the head of the beast that Donald Trump refers to. That was removed early on. This is why Italy went into lockdown first. The Venetians, the Vatican, finished.
Right. Okay. Okay. So this is all new information to me, Charlie.
The Vatican was emptied of all the cash, the gold, and the documentation. And it took 650 plane loads to take it to Fort Knox in America. Unfortunately, Fort Knox was actually empty. But so all the 6,000 tons of gold they've been declaring for the last 10 years was a complete lie. So when Trump took over and he found out it was empty, he wasn't a happy bunny. But he's now managed to fill it up with gold and cash. And where there's another secret location. There has been a facility that has been built specifically for this.
So how's people's personal finances going to be replaced then when this?
It'll be so much better, so much better. People will be financially so much better off than they are right now. Because if you just take away simple income tax, just take away that. So if you're earning, let's say, 20,000 a year,
only 5%, isn't it? It's 6,000. It'll be about £6,000-7,000 a year.
You'll suddenly start earning 20,000. And
but how is the existing wealth that people hold?
They'll still have their wealth. So
that might still be valid. It'll just be.
It'll still be valid. It'll affect the poor people much more than the rich people.
Right.
The poor people will be in a position where they're financially stable. The rich people will still continue to be rich, but they will become richer the more they do for humanity.
Right.
So the benefits won't be out of interest. It'll be out of what you do for humanity.
Yeah.
So how you increase your wealth.
Yeah. By offering services, and it's like a modern barter system, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just love the sound of it. I think it's great.
I think it's amazing, and we're starting to see it roll out. We're starting to see things happen. The forgiveness of debt, I think we will start to see over the next 6 weeks. We've already started to see little testers, and people jump online straight away and tell us immediately that their mortgage has disappeared, or their student loans have disappeared, or their credit card loans. And then, of course, you get the really greedy ones that come along and say, "Well, I don't believe a word you're saying until my mortgage is cleared." I went, "Fine. You'll probably be last because you're greedy." That's just karma.
Karma, yes. So what about so the other so this pandemic is likely to continue for at least until after the November elections. What about the vaccination issue with Bill Gates? And
complete and utter smokescreen. No, he's exposing people for what they're prepared to do to you.
Right. Okay.
People need to wake up to that. And I say to Christian people, it's time to get off your knees and get a backbone and stand up to these people. You can't just sit at home and pray for it. You've got to do something. You've got to stand up against it, because there's one very interesting fact, Darren.
Yeah.
100% of the people that were affected by COVID-19 had the vaccine, the flu vaccine. Not one person, not one, who had not had a vaccine was affected by COVID-19 coronavirus. So when will you wake up to that fact?
Yeah, I mean, I will not have any vaccination if it's rolled out or made mandatory. Particularly with some of the stuff that's associated with the vaccine, including marking people on their hand or their arm. I mean, it's truly frightening. And I said I'm not a religious person, but I'm aware of the Book of Revelations and the things that are stated in it, and it's deeply concerning. And all the chatter is, at least through the media and through social media, is that this is going to be rolled out. We've seen what's going on in New Zealand with the quarantine camps.
They're trying to expose it. This is what Trump is trying to do. I've said to the Kiwis,
he's forcing the issue.
look, he's not going to come into your country and force regime change. That's what the previous government did. He's not going to do that. He's going to show you what's wrong with your country. Now you need to get off your backside and do something about it.
And like I said, people are slowly waking up. We've got our first protests specifically on this issue, or we had one in Nottingham this week, which was to do with the child grooming gangs and how our veterans are on the streets while we're sticking a load of illegal immigrants up in 4-star hotels.
Exactly.
And there's the March Unite for Our Freedoms, which is in London on the 29th.
For Our Children as well was in London at the weekend.
Pardon?
Freedom for Our Children was in London at the weekend as well.
Right. I mean, again, I haven't seen much about that. But
this wasn't on mainstream media at all.
Yeah, because it's been
Laura Ward and Lucy Davis were leading that with many others. Al Pisani was involved. There was a lot of people I've been speaking to that were involved with that. Lots and lots of people down there in London. They went to Buckingham Palace, which is obviously empty.
Right. Yeah. So are you a royal fan, Charlie?
I was. I'll be honest with you. I was very much a royalist, but starting to realise that there's things that are not right.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, you can only look at Prince Andrew to realise that there are some and what happened with Princess Diana. There's some real issues within the royal family, but I think it's the Britishness in me.
It is same in me, Darren. Same in me.
Still sort of hang on to the Queen as the figurehead of our country, and
but you're down in Plymouth, mate. I remember watching the big ships leave Plymouth and Portsmouth, going down to the Falklands. I stood there with pride. I'm a proud.
My dad's he fought in the Falklands. And I worked in the dockyard on nuclear submarines for 15 years. So that's sort of, I got seawater running through my veins.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, there's some unusual stories associated with the royal family that seem to be coming to light at the moment.
There is. We'll have to wait and see, because all of that is conspiracy right now. What's factual is the Queen moved out of Buckingham Palace and has gone into indefinite quarantine, and she said she may not ever go back there. That's fact.
Right. Okay.
Now the story as to the reasons why is just conjecture, and we'll just have to work it out. The Queen would have known that the virus was downgraded to nothing more than the flu before she moved out. But she chose to move out. So something else is going on. Little things as well. When Trump went to see her, he was late. You're not late for the Queen. He walked in front of her. Little things like this, you go, okay.
At the time, I was furious.
Yeah, exactly. You disrespectful monkey. What are you doing?
How dare you walk in front of the Queen? I'm pretty sure I tweeted that.
Probably, yeah. No, Darren, I was on the same page as you.
Yeah. I mean, when Trump got into power, I was his biggest critic. I really didn't like Trump. I wanted him to win, didn't like Hillary. But then I started following the American media, CNN, MSNBC. Fox was the bad guy, so I ignored them. And it wasn't really come towards the end of the Russia investigation that I realized again I had been had. And that's when I really woke up to the influence and not the skill, but the ability of the mainstream media to completely misinform and mislead people. Yeah. And I've literally not watched the media since. And Trump needs to win in November. He needs to win in November.
There's absolutely no doubt or no question of that happened down between you and I.
It should be a landslide.
And nobody else.
Was it 49?
We'll win by about 90%.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The whole of America will go red.
As long as it's a fair vote, there's no way.
It'll be a fair vote. It'll be done on the quantum system. It'll be a blockchain system that they're using for it. And people will realise it won't be between Democrat and Republican. It'll be between good and evil. And the only people that will vote on the other side are people that are so fast asleep they're in a coma.
Yeah, well, the cultists, there's those that have been truly indoctrinated into the far left, that they are almost beyond help now. They believe in what they believe with a religious zeal.
Well, Darren, I've really enjoyed our chat today, and we'll have to line up another one because it's so constructive having somebody with your intelligence and education helping me get the message out to people. And it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you.
And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to
actually
this is the first podcast that I've accepted, and I've turned down a few. So thank you. It's
I'd love to do it again, Darren. I really would.
Okay then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Hi, it's Justin, and I hope you enjoy.